Welcome to the SciLifeLab Talkshow, celebrating the first 10 years of SciLifeLab and the future to come. My name is Lisa Kirsebom. I'm a science journalist, and I have the great pleasure of guiding you through 4 exciting programs where you will meet SciLifeLab collaborators and partners, showing you some small bits of the amazing and varied work that SciLifeLab is contributing to today and will be doing tomorrow. We air every Friday at the same time, so make sure to mark your calendar for the upcoming shows, focusing on combating COVID-19, data-driven life science, and community collaborations. But today's theme is the future of SciLifeLab. I'm sure you have all heard that the roadmap has been presented earlier this year, drawing a picture of where SciLifeLab will go and what it will be in the next 10 years. Most of you have probably read it, but if you haven't, I strongly suggest that you go to the website and look at it after this show. I know you'll find it worth your time. I would like to welcome our first 2 guests to this program, Olli Kallioniemi, Director of SciLifeLab, and Carl-Henrik Heldin, Chairman of the Board. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So SciLifeLab celebrates 10 years. Now, if you would describe SciLifeLab to someone who hasn't heard about it before, Olli, what would you say?
Well, Lisa, I would say that SciLifeLab is a national infrastructure and a research collaboration. It is a very exciting place where these 2 different angles of life science meet each others. And I think SciLifeLab is really a place where a lot of things happens. There's tremendous expertise. And we work with the entire life science community, be they scientists, healthcare professionals, companies, and so on. And this is a national effort supported by the Swedish government for the help of Swedish life science.
Kalle, was that a complete picture, or would you like to add something?
No, I think Olli summarized it very well. So SciLifeLab has a national perspective and mandate, but of course a lot of the activities is in the Uppsala-Stockholm area with the 4 host universities. But I'd like to stress that the mandate is really a national one.
Yes, right. There is this national scope and the local scope too, the nationwide SciLifeLab, but also the Solna campus of SciLifeLab. What does this diversity, what does that mean for the organization?
Well, it means that we need to take care of both aspects of this, and I think they should be considered in a manner that they don't contradict with each other. So I think it is important that people in Solna and Uppsala can do what they do and be proud of their local SciLifeLab environment. And then at the same time that we always make sure that people in the whole country realize that SciLifeLab infrastructure part is there for everybody and everybody can benefit from it. So it is a balancing act. A lot of things at SciLifeLab are really about taking care of various opinions and angles that people may have on what we should or shouldn't do. So we'll manage it, and we have now sort of a good start with the new strategy on doing it.
Right. If we, for a brief moment, look at what SciLifeLab has become so far before we go ahead and talk about the future, is there something that you could pick out, like something that you're proud of?
Well, it's maybe most sort of a difficult to say a particular thing, because I mean there are so many things that one could say that have happened, that SciLifeLab has contributed to, or where we have played a key role. But if I now just have to pick up one, let me just say that I'm really proud that the SciLifeLab infrastructure, all the platforms and facilities, people who do the work for the national infrastructure are doing work that everybody in the country seems to recognize and understand and appreciate. For instance, that half of our users are outside of the Stockholm-Uppsala area. Our users are typically very satisfied with the services that they are getting. And we have statistical and bibliometric proof that when you use SciLifeLab facilities, you actually elevate your citation rate in science. And in a way, we think that we can make a broad, but also extremely useful contribution to the Swedish life science.
Yeah. What about you, Kalle?
Well, I feel a little bit uneasy to take pride in what others have done, but under the SciLifeLab umbrella, I think the recruitment program is of special importance for the future of Swedish research. So this is in the hands of the host universities in Stockholm and Uppsala. And fortunately, the Wallenberg Foundation has supported a similar recruitment program for the other university in Sweden, where they have been able to recruit young scientists in international competition in the area of molecular medicine. I think this program has been of enormous success, and it has been possible to recruit excellent scientists, often from abroad. And if they are Swedish, they have been recruited often from abroad, where they have made postdoc careers, and they now come to Sweden and continue their research here under the SciLifeLab umbrella. And I think this will be of immense importance for the future of Swedish research.
Certainly. So this year, a roadmap has been created for the next 10 years, and we're not going to go into that in detail, of course, but tell me something that you look forward to developing or changing in the next 10 years.
Well, I think one of the things that I could mention is really how we consider the various parts of SciLifeLab like building blocks. So we have the national infrastructure as the baseline, kind of a bit of a justification for the existence of SciLifeLab. But then on top of that, we can build research networks. And now a new element, which is the data-driven life science that we'll be talking about later on in this program. So right. I think it is the different levels of and different activities that we already have talked about that need to be integrated and that need to work together. And need to be linked to the recruitment program, training and education program, and also collaborations and innovations in the life science sector. So I think the future is a lot about how do we leverage the fantastic components that already exist at SciLifeLab and make them work together.
Yeah, Kalle?
Well, one particularly important thing, as I see it, is to keep up the quality in all aspects of SciLifeLab activities. And there we have help of the external international advisory board, which consists of 10 or so international experts that contribute with their knowledge and experience and help SciLifeLab to improve itself. So they come in every second year and they analyze what we are doing and also give advice on what could be done better and what we should take on. In addition, the infrastructure is evaluated, especially then every 4 years, also by an international committee of experts. And based on their advice, we will be able to develop the infrastructure in the most optimal way for life science in Sweden.
Yeah. We'll get back to that a little bit later, so that's an important point. Well, to wrap up, I'd like to hear something that you dream of for the future, not just how you will develop SciLifeLab, but what you hope that SciLifeLab will be able to do. Something that you've been thinking about. Kalle, you want to start?
Well, I think that SciLifeLab has a very important role in Sweden to provide top-of-the-notch infrastructure that is needed for modern life science that the Swedish scientists in the area really are depending on. And one advantage with SciLifeLab is that we can move quickly. We can, based on our experts, advisors, and our own knowledge, we can identify what is needed in terms of new equipment and new instruments and new methods, and get that started very swiftly. And I think in that respect, we then complement very nicely the Research Council that also has a responsibility for infrastructure. And they fulfill a very important role in providing a place where people can make applications for things they need for their research. This is also an important part of building up a useful infrastructure for researchers. And I think the two approaches complement themselves very nicely.
Thank you. Olli?
Well, I'll continue and take a little bit of a different angle to it, that we obviously, life science is incredibly broad area. And I think I would like to see really that we will in the future play a role in a number of different areas that we decide to attack. One could be biodiversity, that we really play a role in identifying what happens in the biodiversity and environmental space. But another one that I could mention closer to my own research is precision medicine. So I think we do have a unique opportunity at SciLifeLab to play a role in future healthcare development and develop the technologies that are needed to treat patients, the right patients in the right way, and also prevent diseases and identify them and diagnose them earlier. And I think this precision medicine angle should be one of the possible contributions that we look back 5 years from now that we made a difference, I hope.
That sounds like a very exciting future ahead, for sure. Thank you very much for taking part here today, Olli and Kalle. Thanks.
Thank you.
Now, let's meet one of the SciLifeLab researchers, Sarahi Garcia from Stockholm University, a SciLifeLab Fellow at Campus Solna.
My name is Sara Garcia, and my group is currently working on microbial ecology in aquatic environments. So when we think about microorganisms, we normally think about one microorganism and what they do. But actually in nature, microorganisms are so many and so diverse, they tend to share tasks and work together to accomplish things. I'm really fascinated by the microbial diversity. So if you see in this Tree of Life, this Tree of Life was published in 2016. You can see that every branch is a representative for a genera that we know based on DNA sequence. And then in the bottom part, you see eukaryotes, which one of those lines is us and other hominids. But then this huge diversity in the top part of the tree, this is all microbial. And for most of them, the only information we know is from DNA sequences. We actually do not know how they physiologically work, how metabolically they work, what function they do in the environment. If you think about 1 milliliter of water from a lake, there is 1 million microorganisms living there. And the carbon from the atmosphere goes through a cycle where it goes into the water, it gets fixated by the photosynthetic microorganisms, which are like tiny plants, but they're bacteria. The trophic interactions of the aquatic environments start with the microorganisms. So there's huge processes that happen, and I really would like to get at the bottom of it and understand how this works, how these interactions happen, and how, if we understand them enough, we could use them to our advantage. I like to think about microorganisms as a magic, because there's so many out there, and it's this huge biomass, but we actually can't see it with our eyes. The pandemic has an effect on the way I conduct research because I don't have the opportunity to meet in person with a lot of people. When it all happened in March, I had to re-evaluate and change my expectations. So, for example, I didn't set up the lab anymore because in the beginning I didn't know if it was safe or not to be going to work every day. So I postponed setting up of the laboratory. Alejandro, who is PhD student in my group, he started working on literature review and then learning analytical methods bioinformatically. And then Julia, she's postdoc in my group. She hasn't managed to move to Stockholm, so she's actually working remotely. So we actually don't have these group interactions. if bacteria have shown me anything, it's about interactions, right? Like we actually need to be connected and work as a network to make things happen. We can try the best we can, but of course we are affected. I mean, I really think climate change is a lot more pressing than the pandemic. So I think pandemic affects humans, and it is important to address it because we all want to have equality in our life. But I think addressing climate change is a lot more pressing. I think SciLifeLab as a national infrastructure has a lot of value to scientific development in Sweden and perhaps in the world as well. I really appreciate that SciLifeLab is looking to invest in technology to be able to understand all levels of biology. And I think it's a great opportunity to interact with different type of scientists that think different than I do, and that we can like become more interdisciplinary as we interact. I really appreciate that. And the core value of SciLifeLab, which is to foster and keep talent, which is something I was maybe yearning to hear for a long time. SciLifeLab has set really nice grounds to develop interdisciplinary research that tries to understand life from all different perspectives. If I would have advised myself when I was younger, I would have said like, just believe in yourself, work on your resilience. I mean, it is a hard job to aim for. So really have the goal in mind and keep working towards it with perseverance and tenacity.
And now, time for a couple of greetings from the rectors of the founding universities of SciLifeLab.
SciLifeLab have had 10 fantastic years. The government initiative for strategic research area pulled together resources from Uppsala and Stockholm in a great collaboration. Much have happened since then. Today, SciLifeLab is a successful ecosystem of infrastructure and also a key of resources for all of Sweden and life science. Internationally, you have gained a great reputation and you have been successfully recruiting young scientists throughout the world. And that promises well for the future. When the coronavirus hit during this spring, SciLifeLab showed ability to adapt quickly and taking responsibility. As a result, the SciLifeLab were entrusted with distributing the coronavirus funding from the Kurt and Alice Wallenberg Foundation, which we are very grateful for. I would like to say a sincere thank you to everyone who has contributed to these 10 years of success. Without your great commitment and engagement, SciLifeLab would not be where it is today, with a great promise for the future. Thank you.
Greetings, SciLifeLab, and congratulations to 10 successful years. During the past months of pandemic, SciLifeLab has really proven its value to society. SciLifeLab has become a well-recognized and competitive research environment, demonstrated through the many research publications released each year, and also demonstrated by the large interest from international excellent researchers to come and join in the research environment at SciLifeLab. Through the collaboration between the 4 host universities and the Node University, Sweden has once again built a strong life science cluster. This will benefit Sweden as an industry nation, and the researchers of SciLifeLab will contribute to the world's knowledge in the life science area. I wish SciLifeLab success in its second decade. Thank you.
Next, we're going on a visit to some of the SciLifeLab facilities in Lund.
The best thing, I think, working in this facility is that we belong to a very strong community, SciLifeLab, and we are in an area that is actually exploding for the moment. So a lot of new technologies that can really elevate and benefit research projects, but also really move and develop tomorrow's diagnostics for healthcare and for improved precision medicine.
What I like very much working at the facility is to discuss new projects with users that have not been running projects at the facility and who have particular needs that we need to optimize and tailor our services to, because I find this very challenging and very interesting.
Early on in February this year, so the clinical microbiology department asked for help to scale up the local diagnostic testing. Since then, Clinical Genomics Lund, with the state-of-the-art equipment we have in automation and sequencing and PCR equipment, we have contributed with more than 60,000 COVID-19 tests to the regional healthcare here.
This COVID-19 situation is of course very unfortunate, but it also opens up for new lines of thoughts in terms of how we interact in the scientific community, opens up for new constellations of collaborations, and we hope to be able to build on that also in future beyond the current ongoing pandemic. So we exploit genetic engineering and advanced molecular technologies to perfect antibodies in ways that they can actually deliver what we want them to do, and to resolve disease and to approach diagnostic problems that are important to everyday life of all of us. So the best thing about being a SciLifeLab facility is the ability to learn from others and to interact with others and to understand more about their problems and to find solutions to their problems, as well as we can learn from them and improve the quality of our own research. And not just within in SciLifeLab activities, but also beyond that, and solving problems in other projects in our research environment.
One thing that I'm very proud of when it comes to being part of the bioinformatics facility is the colleagues. I think I'm always impressed when I see all the competence, the level of skills that we have, and the fantastic way we can collaborate and help each other out, learn from each other. So I'm always fascinated about seeing how, when we come together and discuss various topics, how much progress we can make in a short time.
For us in Lund, gives an excellent connection to the rest of SciLifeLab, where there are many great platforms and data providers, and being part of this network is fascinating and useful in many cases.
Another thing that I think we are doing particularly well in bioinformatics is the knowledge transfer. It's both when we provide training to PhD students, postdocs and researchers, both nationally and internationally, but also when we are working together with a group, that a lot of the knowledge that we have can then be transferred onto and into these groups, and thereby increasing the skills that the individual groups have. That in turn makes it possible for us to take on the more challenging task, where you really need to have highly skilled bioinformaticians involved solving those challenges.
And now we have two more greetings from the rectors of the founding universities of SciLifeLab.
This is a personal greeting to SciLifeLab from the president of Karolinska Institutet. What a decade you have behind you. All the achievements, all the successes that you have gained during a period of 10 years. Congratulations. I have a personal confession to make, and that is that one of the reasons why I came to Sweden in the first place is SciLifeLab, because I realized the enormous potential of life sciences in Sweden. And now we see that there is a sky-high ambition at the national level to develop Sweden into a life science nation. This will never, ever happen if it were not for SciLifeLab. We trust that you will continue to develop over the next 10 years and that you will elevate Sweden into this top tier of life science nations. You have done tremendous work, and it will be fascinating to be part of the development in the years to come. Life sciences, that's the future. We know that life science will transform society as we know it, not only when it comes to the development of new drugs, treatments, and so forth, but life sciences will permeate the way we live. It will lead to better prevention of disease, and it will transform and improve the healthcare system. So it is with great expectation that we will follow the development of SciLifeLab in the years to come. So again, congratulations. It's fascinating to follow your work, and what you have done so far bodes well for the future. Thank you very much for your attention.
Greetings to SciLifeLab from Stockholm University for a more than successful journey into its second decade. For us, the most important thing about SciLifeLab is that we have been able to make very strong recruitments, thanks both to the strategic research area funding, the Wallenberg funding, and the dynamic research environment at Campus Solna, which attracts leading young scholars from all over the world. The fact that researchers at Stockholm University now have the opportunity to use all facilities at the national infrastructure has also been very important for us. Like any other university, we would never have had the capacity to build these infrastructures ourselves, and it still means a lot to have them close and with a good support structure available. SciLifeLab has finally also provided an excellent framework for the cryo-electron microscope, for which Stockholm University got funding from the Wallenberg and the Erling Persson family foundations. Their success has indeed been facilitated by the dynamic research environment at SciLifeLab. With a new Wallenberg program for data-driven life science, the specific profile of Stockholm University within cell and molecular biology, as well as biodiversity and evolution, will be further strengthened. For the future, SciLifeLab also has a unique opportunity to support the development of many different disciplines within a broad field of life science research, such as geoscience or environmental and climate science. Thank you.
Finally, on this first show, we will talk about the research infrastructure of SciLifeLab and what we can expect from that in the future. I have with me Annika Jenmalm Jensen, Infrastructure Director of SciLifeLab, and Anders Karlhede, SciLifeLab Board Member. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, I know we are in the middle of an interesting shift right now. You're just about to complete the recurring 4-year evaluation of the SciLifeLab infrastructure. Will you tell me something about why is it that you evaluate every 4 years?
We have decided to have this major international evaluation every 4 years, and that is in conjunction with the research proposition. You know, the government is directly funding SciLifeLab, and they do that on a level that is decided then in the research proposition every 4 years. So that's why we have decided that.
Right, but why is it important to do it every 4 years?
Well, it is important. I mean, basically, it is important to do it continuously. Renewal of the infrastructure is really important, and we have now in the future tried to enable that even further with a policy shift and moving towards a platform-centric organization. But we think it's important to do a major one every 4 years and to have this input this year we had the input both, of course, from the international evaluators, international experts that broadly cover what SciLifeLab is offering, but we also, for the first time, actually asked the universities to give their individual view on the impact on their university for the coming years, which turned out to be extremely useful and complementary to the IAC report. And as a third group, actually, we have something we call the National SciLifeLab Committee that consists of members from the non-host universities, and they gave also their view on the impact for Sweden.
Right.
So we have these three various angles of views on the infrastructure. But of course,
Right.
it's very, very important to do it continuously.
Well, obviously you collected a lot of material, but Anders, would you just give one example of something interesting that's come up through the evaluation?
Let me first second what Annika said, that it's really important to have high quality evaluations and also with an international input as we had here. I think this has been lacking to a large extent when it comes to, in general, to Swedish evaluation of infrastructure. So I think it's a lot to be learned from this in general. Let me give one example that is something that was proposed by Stockholm University, and that's in exposomics, which was picked up by the international evaluators who were very interested in it, but saw it as maybe one could call a high risk, high gain project. And it is now being proposed as a 2-year pilot. The universities, on the other hand, were not interested at all in this, basically because it's very new. But I think it's also very important to be able to pick up these new things like this.
Right. So it's not as simple as that the evaluators tell you one thing, that you should get this, and then that's what you do. But you actually have to have a process now where you decide what to move on with.
And maybe I can add, Lisa, to what Anders said, because we, as an important part of the evaluation was actually the start of it, that we had an open call, open to all universities and university researchers, asking them for suggestions on new areas. And exposomics, like Anders described, was actually one of those suggestions. And there are several other examples of new facilities that actually are taken in now through this call. So this is something we would like to have also in the future.
But of course, it's also very important to phase things out, of course. It's easy to add things, and there are lots of good examples and a lot of interest from scientists and universities to add things to the portfolio at SciLifeLab. But it really has to be, we really have to be able to phase out things, and a couple of things are being phased out, proposed to be phased out now. But I think we have to be even more tough in the future to do this.
Right. So what infrastructural changes are we about to see in the upcoming years?
So actually I can start with reflecting on what we already talked about, the importance of continuous renewal of the technologies. And that is sort of a shift towards a more platform-centric organization, that we want to give a more clear mandate on a higher level, and give them the mission and the mandate to continuously update the infrastructure. And on that note also, that we want to, infrastructure and research relationship is extremely important. And in the future, now with this new updated policy for steering, we want to make it more clear and to define the different roles of researchers. Researchers are, in many ways, are defining and the future needs in terms of technologies, and they are also partly responsible for developing new technologies. But there is also this other extremely important for the infrastructure personnel category, the staff scientists. So we want to define the role of the researchers in the organization, but to give more power in terms of operator, the budget, being responsible for personnel, to the staff scientists. And this is very important. And it's already happening, and the universities are recognizing this as well.
Anders, what changes do you see in the future?
I would like to connect to the evaluation. And one of the things that came out on top there, I think in the very, very top, was the CryoEM facility. And that was actually introduced in a slightly different way, where the Wallenberg Foundation, on an initiative by a scientist, Gunnar von Heine, took the initiative to fund a CryoEM facility at 2 of the universities, and then it became a facility at SciLifeLab. And this has been extremely successful. And this happened in a very short time span. So that was not a result of a sort of a continuous slow process. And one should acknowledge the importance of the Wallenberg Foundation in this respect. They are willing to act quickly in this way. And this is a very important complement to having this regular process with proposals that are being processed by SciLifeLab.
Annika?
Yeah, I completely agree. And actually, if we look at the individual now assessment from the various bodies, the 3 bodies that evaluated, the CryoEM came out really as the star. I mean, it got really high remarks from all the bodies.
Right, interesting. Now, there are a number of other major research infrastructure facilities being built in Sweden right now, newly accomplished or being built. I'm thinking, of course, of, for example, Max4 and ESS. How do you see the possibilities to sort of collaborate or tie into the other infrastructures?
Really good point, and very important. And actually, we now are launching a new platform that we call Integrated Structural Biology, that actually has a dedicated mission to collaborate with Max4 and ESS in terms of structural biology type of questions. And we have, for a time now, actually had regular meetings with Max4 and ESS. There are so many complementarities in both with structural biology, but also imaging. And we really would like to make it easy from a user perspective, researcher's perspective in Sweden, to see very clearly the whole picture, not only the SciLifeLab picture, but the complementarities that exist at Max4 and ESS, and also actually at universities. I mean, university core facilities is also complementary to what SciLifeLab is offering. And also the Vetenskapsrådet is also funding parts that is considered to be outside the boundaries of SciLifeLab, and is also a very, I mean, we want to enable for the users to see the whole picture, not only the SciLifeLab part,
right,
in the future.
Anders, do you have something you want to add to that?
Yes, Sweden has these 3 big facilities, SciLifeLab, Max4, and coming soon ESS, and they are really very big for a small country, and we have a responsibility to use them well and take good care of them. I think it's an excellent opportunity. We often talk about the 4th component in this also, and that's e-infrastructure. That is, of course, not one facility like the others, but still very important, where Sweden has excellent opportunities if we can get our act together.
Then we are very much looking forward to Sweden getting its act together in the upcoming years. So thank you so much for participating here today, Anders and Annika.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all from us today. Don't miss tuning in next week, same time, when we will talk about SciLifeLab combating the COVID-19 pandemic. See you then.